the thing I wish, like I could wear a sign around my neck that would tell people he's nothing special. He's just an ordinary guy who made extraordinary decisions.
Welcome to the Four Fires Podcast, where we talk about winning in all four of the essential areas of life.
All right, well, welcome to the Four Fires Podcast. My name is Alan Kemper, and I'm going to be your host today, and I am here with my friend Rich Dewees. Rich, glad to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So today we are going to dig into the physical fire, and Rich and I have been friends for a little while. He has come on board and is working with lead advisors as a Four Fires consultant. Rich and I got to really spend some good time together at the Army Combat Fitness Test that we did several months ago. One of the things I love about the Army Combat Fitness Test is that it is an equalizer, right? So there's some events in there that benefit, people who do a lot of strength training. There's some events in there that benefit people who do some endurance training. But one of the things I actually really appreciate is it is an event that is graduated by age, right? So I'm 46.
I'm 60.
Yeah, and we had some guys there that were. I mean, we had one of our guys brought his middle school son,
right?
But some of the other guys who were competing or participating in the event were in their early 20s, and so the scores are graduated based on age and gender. So I'm not competing with the 22-year-old, but it levels out our score in a way that helps us to be sure that we're combat effective, which I kind of like that. I just want to make sure that at whatever stage in life I'm at, I've done the work to be combat effective. So that's a big preamble to bring you into this conversation. I want you have a really neat journey in your physical fire that I want to unpack with you and for the audience. And so why don't you give us just a general introduction of who you are today, and then we'll dig into how'd you get to be the Rich that you are today.
Yeah, thanks. Alan, thanks so much for having me here. And it's a blessing that you or anybody would recognize that there's something different about me just from a physical standpoint. I don't have to do anything else. I show up and people know that this guy has done something. And I'm just so grateful for that. But it's all about a decision. Right.
Lots of decisions.
And but it all started really with one, and we'll get there. I think like many men, I grew up with sports heroes, being very much drawn to athletic competition, and I think my first sports hero was Roger Staubach, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, and I was my earliest memories of the NFL were watching. The Cowboys were always on the 4:00 game, and I remember watching those games with my dad on the couch before going to church on Sunday nights. And here was this guy who came out of the Navy, win the Heisman Trophy, and then take 4 years off to fulfill his naval service. And then he steps into the NFL. And I was always struck by him. And he played the game differently than most of the other players I was watching. And that kind of set a tone for me. And so as I became old enough to participate, I remember being cut from, it doesn't happen today, but being cut from my, what they called farm team baseball team, right? The pre-Little League age group.
Wow.
And I got cut my first year, and that was devastating. I actually made the team my second year and played exactly 0 innings of actual ball. There were a couple games they played some extra innings for all us scrubs. right, that experience alone could have been the end of my athletic career. And I just, something in me, you just keep going. Flag football was the next thing on my in my athletic journey, and that was much better. I liked that a lot. And then I got into tackle football, and all of that was good. So I was always that athletic, always interested in sports, and that carried me a long way. My college, I went to Kentucky Christian College, now university. They didn't have football, so I had to pick up soccer. I had never played a game of soccer until I showed up at Kentucky Christian College. My very first collegiate soccer game, which was my very first soccer game ever, was Marshall University.
Wow.
On in their stadium, on their field, and we got destroyed. But it was just the next step.
Yep.
And so what I want guys to understand is so many of our listeners have had those similar experiences, right? You just kind of work your way through, and then at some point you come to the end of whatever your athletic career is, and then it's now what? Now what? For me, I got out of college and I went into youth ministry, which was great because it kept me active. I got to play with kids a lot. And so all that was good. And then there was church softball. And so that athletic thing in me was still finding some outlet. Then you get to a point where you start having kids.
Yep.
You start, life starts slowing down in some ways. The body starts changing a little bit. Yep. And as much as activity in youth ministry served me for a long time, by the time I was ready to get out of youth ministry, my body was not looking like it had when I started youth ministry, but I ignored it.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you going to do, right? So I did. I picked up playing recreational soccer, so that gave me a little outlet. I liked that. And you just carry on. I turned 40 years old. A little bit of a career crisis. I was in ministry. I was a senior pastor, and I knew it was time to find a different church.
Yep.
So at 40, we moved from Louisville, Kentucky, to Macon, Georgia.
Oh wow!
And it became very evident at that point that my body was not what I wanted it to be. I remember very distinctly having a conversation with myself in the mirror at the age of 40 that, oh man, this is what getting old looks like. The most disturbing thing about that moment was the ease with which I resigned myself to, that's just what it is.
It is what it is.
Like I knew I didn't like it, but in that moment, I didn't think there was anything to be done about it. And it didn't take me too long to kind of reconsider, wait a minute, there are some things that I can do, but I didn't really know what those things were. Like I said, we moved to Macon, Georgia, and in that new church was a fella who had been on a fitness journey, and he had made some good progress. He had followed a plan, but he had fallen off the wagon, if you will. And so we started having conversations, and he's like, well, yeah, I did this thing, and it worked really well, but I stopped doing it, and I'd be interested in doing it again. Would you be interested? I'm like, absolutely, because I've been on this journey too.
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago, and I have been on the path of this fitness journey for those 20 years. So 40 years of getting by on what God gave me.
Yep.
And now it's been 20 years of putting forth effort to preserve what God gave me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting we talk about in the physical fire that there is a natural progression, and that we start in our 20s and you don't have to do a whole lot of work to be in pretty decent shape in your 20s, and even you can carry that over into your 30s. But about the time you get to your 40s, the nose of that plane is heading down. And we kind of talk about jokingly, my job at 46 is just to keep the nose of the plane level, or, like going down as slowly as possible. Which a little bit, even that is a resignment. I probably need to do a little bit of check on that and say, hey, because I do know some men in their 50s and 60s and 70s who are doing it well, and you don't have to be resigned and to just accepting what life hands you.
Right. For me, it's been interesting. I have a son who is 29 years old. And so he was just beginning to pay attention when I started my fitness journey. So really, in his real memory, he's always seen me as working on my fitness. It is very much a part of what he chooses to do now. And I think about where he's going to be when he's 40, how much further ahead he's going to be from where I was, and the advantage that he has, in part because I set a good example for him. Wherever you are in your life and on your journey, it's bottom line, it's never too late to start, because you can make a difference in your fitness, in your health, and in the example that you're setting for other people, wherever you are.
Yeah, most lessons are caught, not taught. I had somebody tell me one time that the greatest predictor of the man that your son will be at 35 is you at 35.
Right.
And if you look at that guy and you don't like what you see and you wouldn't want it for your son, then you have to do the hard work to make yourself into a guy that you would be proud for your son to be.
For me, I didn't have the framework of the 4 fires as I'm walking through this. I did have, an incredible relationship with and commitment to trying to honor God with my life. And my body was a part of that, as non-proactive as I might have been. I always knew it was a part of that. But now looking back from the 4 fires framework, I made a decision to put logs on my physical fire. And to be honest, I think men need to hear this too. Part of it was I wanted to honor God with my body. Part of it was I wanted to be able to do what was in front of me to do, whatever that was. I did have a perspective. When I started this journey, my son was in middle school, and I wanted to be able to do stuff with him. That paid off because he chose to wrestle. Opened up a door for me to end up coaching with his wrestling teams.
Cool.
As a 48-year-old man, I went out to Iowa and competed in national, what they called veterans wrestling tournament. It's just crazy, right? It's a memory that I'll just never forget. That I made a decision that allowed me an opportunity that so few people. Well, as a matter of fact, in my age group, in my weight class, there were 3 of us that had made that decision, right? That you start talking about small percentages of people, and that's just fantastic to me. And so I started making those decisions. I didn't have the framework to understand I was putting logs on that fire, but that was the reality, and they were simple decisions. I looked in the mirror. I didn't like the belly that was ever increasing, and that's it was an aesthetic thing. It was my ego as much as anything saying, I don't like the way this looks. I'm going to change it. There's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with wanting to look a certain way and taking the steps to achieve that. Mm-hmm. And it, very much a piece of my journey was accepting that. Mm-hmm. It's okay that I want to look good. It's okay that I want to look good for my wife. Mm-hmm. All of those pieces all come together. And the physical fire is the place that all of that changes. It's just decisions.
So it sounds like at 40, you kind of had, so we talk about awareness, ownership, and discipline. Yeah. Sounds like at 40, you had this awareness moment, like, mm-hmm. where I'm at now, I don't like, that you owned it. Like it was like, hey, I got here because of some choices I made in the past, and the way that I'm going to get out of here is by some choices I'm about to make in the future. Yeah. And then there was the application of discipline. So you kind of alluded to this, when you got to Macon, you found somebody else who was doing something. What did that discipline season look like for you that has kind of carried over the last 20 years?
Yeah, it really has been up and down, right? 20 years is a long time. And to give anybody the impression that every day was just fantastic would not be accurate.
Always up and to the right, Rich?
Always. But I like this definition of consistency. Mm-hmm. More often than not, over those 20 years, I was choosing to place logs on my physical fire. As I look back, I am just so grateful. I'm grateful for a big decision that I am not going to accept what getting old looks like. Mm-hmm. And then I'm grateful for a lot of smaller decisions and daily decisions that I'm going to show up and I'm going to do what it takes to be different. So part of that, it's so easy. We could spend a long time talking about workouts and exercises and all of that stuff, and maybe we will, and that would be fine. The reality is that, as they say, you can't outwork a bad diet. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that I needed to make different, better choices about my nutrition. I would not say that I'm any kind of expert in that, but thankfully, that friend, the program that he had used successfully, right, which is really all I needed. All I needed was some information and a little confidence in that information, which he provided. He also provided a little accountability because we would show up every morning at 5 a.m. when the gym opened. We were there to work the program. And back in that day, it was a program called Body for Life, and it had a nutrition component to it. It was an alternating day. Monday was upper body, Tuesday was cardio, Wednesday was lower body, Thursday was cardio, and you just continued that thing. You took Sunday off, and it was a cheat day. But the nutrition was super simple. It was a portion of protein, a portion of lean protein, and a portion of complex carbohydrate. Super simple. And then, they gave you a list of foods. And that was, even I couldn't mess it up.
Yeah.
Right?
Sparked the plan.
And it all made sense. And, now I understand more about nutrition, and it's maybe not quite that simple for everybody. But really, getting started, it's that simple for everybody.
You can get 90% of the way to good with some really basic habits. Yeah. And I think a lot of times people get hung up on trying to build a plan that's 98% good. And you're like, well, you're missing the point. Right. If you can just get to the 90% good with some big picture wins.
Absolutely.
It makes a huge difference.
And it's about consistency. It's just doing it every day. And if you fall off the wagon, you get back on the wagon as soon as possible. And it doesn't take that long before you begin seeing the impact. We all, I don't know a man who doesn't wish that the physical changes happened faster. But if you can just be patient, just stay on the path, it's not that long.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on where you are, a couple of weeks, if you're paying attention,
Yeah.
you will know that you feel different. A couple of weeks after that, you'll begin to see the little changes. You get
Mm-hmm.
8 to 12 weeks in, and you've been consistent.
Yeah.
It's like, this is doing something.
Mm-hmm. And the reality is that next year, so I'm 46 now. Next year, no matter what I do, I'm going to be 47.
That's right.
I'm either going to be 47 fatter or 47 fitter.
Right.
You know, like, but a year from now, I'm going to be 47 something.
That's right.
And so what actions am I going to take to be sure that I arrive at the 47 that I want to arrive at?
That's the whole key, right? Who is it that you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be somebody who was leaner than I had allowed myself to be. And early on, that's what it was about. It was about managing my weight and my body composition. It was not so much about building muscle. I wasn't looking at, bulking.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at looking better.
Yeah, there's a it's interesting in the physical fire, right? There's a piece of this that is about ability, right? And then there's a piece about like appearance is kind of this byproduct of ability, right? And sometimes the thing that gets us in it is I know that people who are fit look this way, and I want to look this way, but you can't get the look without the work to get there. Right. And so in a second, I want to get into kind of what this has evolved into for you in terms of some regular rhythm of events. But I want to take a little sidebar over here because I think that moment for you at 40, and I had a similar moment around 40, where I ran some triathlons. I was starting to pay attention to body composition, body recomposition. And I think there's a split in the road that happens for men. Somewhere in your mid-30s, somewhere in your 40s, is that you're either going to choose to fight and try to pull the nose of this plane up, or you're just going to choose to kind of accept wherever life takes you. And I want to tell a story real quick because I was at a funeral of a man who had a very a life that didn't go the way that maybe he wanted it to go. He passed of liver complications and general physical dishealth at an age younger than he should have passed at. And I was at the funeral, and somebody asked the question, oh my goodness, his father was this other person, a completely different type of person. Why did these two men turn out so differently? And the comment that I heard was, this man was someone who was willing to tolerate the intolerable and accept the unacceptable. And the other man just would not put up with that which was intolerable or unacceptable, and he chose to press against those things. And I think that for you, that moment in your 40s was that kind of pinnacle moment for you where you go, I'm just not going to do this anymore. And I think we all have those moments in short for that spark of awareness. But it is the application of that long-term grind. So you got into this rhythm and routine of getting up on the daily, doing some physical work, starting to pay attention to your nutrition. What has that turned into in terms of races? And we were talking a little bit like this is all an evolving journey.
Right.
So what does that look like for you now in terms of, you mentioned Spartan races and...
Yeah, so I have participated in, finished 33 Spartan races. Spartan racing is obstacle course racing. I think Army obstacle course inspired monkey bars, crawling under barbed wire, climbing over walls. climbing ropes, all that kind of thing. That's what Spartan Race is. I never imagined it to be in my future. My son came home from his freshman orientation class, the class they make everybody take about life, right? And he could get extra credit if he did a race, any kind of race, a 5K, whatever. But apparently in this class, they showed a video of a Spartan race. So he came home talking about a Spartan race.
As young men do, he got excited about an adventure. And
so we started talking, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, that looks hard, right? There was a part of me that was, I still am intimidated by them, which might be one of the things that makes them awesome. And so we started talking and checking it out and whatever, and we signed up. And the reality is that by the time we ran our first Spartan race, the class was over, so he never got the extra credit. But that was the beginning of a life-changing experience for me. In Spartan Race, they have 3 different distances, and if you do one of each of those distances in a calendar year, that's called a trifecta. They had me hook, line, and sinker. From the moment I did that first short one, I had to have the other 2 because I had to have the trifecta. And the greatest thing is that Spartan, you're competing against yourself, right? It's timed, but who cares? Well, I care. And so I would show up and I would do my best. And the very first race, I could not climb the rope. Back in those days of Spartan, the rope came out of water. So if you fell into water, and that was fine. The downside is that the rope is so incredibly slick that I couldn't even really get started. So my wife got me a Groupon to a CrossFit gym because they had ropes. And I got pretty doggone good at climbing the rope in the whole CrossFit thing. I went for my second race, and I still couldn't climb the rope because that wet rope, I could not navigate it. And it was demoralizing. Fortunate for me, Spartan went away from the water, and now they've got mats under the rope climb, and I've not failed a rope since.
So you're 60. Do you ever walk around and look at 60-year-olds and wish? Sometimes I wish for a degree of, because there's a confidence that comes from knowing that you can do a thing, right? Like, the Army Combat Fitness Test is a great thing for me. We do it twice a year, and it's just a level set for me. Like, I know if I needed to run 2 miles, I know if I needed to lift this, I know if I needed to do the work. I'm doing the work in between, and I'm testing it periodically. And we talk about in the physical fire, it's not just about appearance, but there is like this something that happens to a guy when he's got a degree of confidence because he knows he can do the work. And we live in such a society that is so devoid of any kind of real physical labor. Like, I don't have to work to eat, or not physical work. Talk a little bit about, what do you think makes you, how does this focus in your physical fire make you different than some of your peers at 60?
Yeah, I think all the time about how I compare to my peers. And I, for the most part, am pleased with how I compare to my peers physically. And I know that it all goes back to just decisions that I've made, and decisions I've continued to make day after day. The consistency piece is huge. And again, I like the definition of consistency being more often than not. I can be very militaristic about my commitments. And I tend to still be that way with the fact that I am going to, at the very least, get my run in every day. If I'm in a situation where I can't get to the gym, okay. If I can get to a gym, I'm going to be in the gym. I'm going to hit my run. So that is is very ingrained in me at this point, and yet every morning is a choice that I make. I went through a season of being very militaristic with my nutrition, right? It with really good results physically, but mentally, that was less sustainable for me. So I had to find balance to that. So right, I walk around, and yes, I compare myself to others that I see. I compare myself to others in the gym, not just those that I think are my age or older. Everybody, right? That's one of the issues about the combat fitness test is the fact that I'm grateful that it's graded by age, and at the same time, I feel like I'm cheating because I don't want to just be good for a 60-year-old. I want to be good for a man. The thing I wish, like I could wear a sign around my neck that would tell people he's nothing special. He's just an ordinary guy who made extraordinary decisions. Because that's the only difference between me and so many other people that I see is that I've made different decisions for good reasons. Right? I think that my intent to honor my Creator with my body, that matters. My intent to look good for everything else I do, because it has a positive impact on all of that, that matters, right? My intent to be a good example, not just to my son, but to anybody that sees me. That matters to me. And my intent to be the kind of man who shows up and does what's before him to do on purpose.
Yeah, our life is a byproduct of the choices that we make.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a good quote. It says, "Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. So, choose your hard."
Yeah, exactly right.
I mean, it's going to be hard. There's, like, some people go, "Oh my gosh, that guy gets up early in the morning, most days of the week when he could be sleeping. That's really hard." So is not being able to go backpacking or doing a thing with your son that maybe
or even walk up the stairs, or you have to get the parking spot that's close to the door because like that is not a life I want.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's Jordan Peterson. I'm pretty sure it's Jordan Peterson who talks about being capable. And that as a man, I want to be dangerous. Not to be harmful. It's not that side of dangerous. It's about capability.
Yeah.
And I like that idea. I want to be capable to handle whatever's in front of me.
Yeah, it's him. It's Jordan Peterson or somebody in that genre that says you cannot be peaceful if you're not strong, or if you're not able to make war.
Right. Yes.
Because if you're not able to inflict harm, then you're not peaceful. You're weak.
Right. And I think that's the context of this that idea of dangerous. Right. If I'm capable, then I am dangerous. But at the same time, there's something that comes with that capability that gives me the option of also being good.
Meekness is strength restrained.
Yeah.
Which is different than weakness. And I think that I think you walk differently with your shoulders back. Yeah. I've talked to several guys who live in the jiu-jitsu space, and they say they walk into a room and there's a confidence that comes from knowing that any one person who approaches me, I can take them down, like regardless, almost regardless of size or. Not that that's the intent, but there is something that lives in us when we know whether we're strong or we know whether we're weak, and that leaks out into our conversations and our relationships.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is such a good example of that idea of capability. I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink, and he's a big proponent of jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
Right? And that idea that when you know that you can be a bully, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back to capability and dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly you don't need to be.
Yeah, and I think, for our young men, John Eldredge talks about the idea of, if you haven't read Wild at Heart, got to read
Oh,
Wild
it's fantastic,
at Heart.
right?
And he kind of addresses that for how we raise boys.
Yeah.
Is the idea of don't teach your boys to be weak.
Right.
Don't, it is teach them to have strength restrained.
Right. So important in
Yeah.
our society that men pick up the torch of masculinity for their sons.
Femininity cannot bestow masculinity. And the
Can't.
only person who is going to teach your son to be a man is another man.
Right.
I'd like it at least in part, to be me.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah.
point him towards some other guys as well. But so you've been on this journey for 20 years of being very, there's awareness, there's some ownership, 20 years of discipline. What do you think is next for you? Is there another chapter? Are there different activities that you feel like you'll start to get into? What do you want 60 to 80 to look like?
Yeah. I had this conversation with a group of guys, I don't know, here in the last couple of weeks. It's kind of about that idea of 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else in this group younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can kind of look at me and say, oh, well, there's what 20 years looks like. For me, what I want, and I don't know if it's possible, just physically,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things happen.
Yep.
But as far as I can control, I want 80-year-old Rich to look very much like 60-year-old Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's unreasonable. I'm constantly questioning the older gentlemen I see at the gym,
Mm-hmm.
if what they're doing and how they're doing it
Mm-hmm.
is just a byproduct of age,
Yeah.
or if it's something else. Can I choose
Mm-hmm.
to do better or more or different than they have? And I believe at this point that as long as I continue to be wise in how I do it, that there's no reason that I shouldn't be able to continue to do the basic movements and things that I'm doing now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. So more than anything, it's not about, for me, adding new things. It's about consistently maintaining my activity level and paying attention to the progression, right? Is it silly to think that I should be progressing at 60 years old? I don't think so. Maybe some of those numbers
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to hit at 45, they might be beyond me
Mm-hmm.
at 60, certainly at 80.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that movement and a reasonably close number
Mm-hmm.
is beyond my reach if I continue to strive for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you think, I can climb, if I got on the stair climber and I can climb 50 flights of stairs in X number of minutes, and if every month I just was sure that I could climb that number of stairs in that number of minutes, well, in 10 years, if you did a check on that every month,
Yeah. There's no
over the
reason.
course of the next 10 years, and you just forced yourself to do that level of work every month,
Right.
what would that look like if
Right.
10 years from now you could still do the same number of stairs in the same amount of time?
Yeah. Yeah. So where I am, to get more into the weeds, numbers still matter to me,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in moving weight. My numbers aren't impressive. I don't think, for maybe the average gym-going male, but they're probably not bad for the average gym-going 60-year-old. And I talk to guys much younger than me who are like, oh, I've given up bench press. It's bad for your shoulders, whatever. And I can't disagree with them. But for me, the idea of going away from this movement that I like and gives me a baseline of strength, it's immeasurable for me.
Yep.
I'm going to continue to do it.
For sure.
Right? The same thing with deadlifts. And, people want to talk about safety or whatever. I get it, right? There needs to be wisdom applied. But at the same time, why would I abandon a movement that is so good for my body and is such a nice, measurable?
Yeah.
Why do I want to walk away from that if I don't have to? So I'm all about maintaining some of those numbers, continuing to test myself in those things, as well as, so every day I'm weight training that I can get to a gym. But every day I'm also running. So I have run 3 miles virtually every day for the last 5 years, 4.5 years. I took a about a 2-month break from doing it every day. 6 months ago. But now I'm back to every day.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people, I think that that's like just too much. My knees don't hurt. There are no red flags telling me, hey, you need to stop doing this.
Yeah. Listen to your body. But, well, there's the listen to your body, but then there's also the push through what your body tells you sometimes. You and I have kicked around this idea. There are so many people who seem to be wrestling with, how do I pull the nutrition lever? How do I find that consistency and that motivation to get in the gym day after day, get into a routine? And one of the things that you and I are going to be talking about, and we're going to be working with a nutritionist on, is this idea of, let's create a jump start program. Let's create something that's doable for people in their home. If the gym is scary, if counting calories is foreign, that is so simple. That is kind of this launch program. If you need a physical reset, one of the things we want to be able to offer and put into the tribe is, hey, kind of like what you found in Macon. Hey, let's do a program. And maybe I can find a guy in the tribe who's willing to do a program with me. And as long as we plan the work and then we commit to work the plan, and we can do that in community, I think that there's an opportunity for us to see people grow a lot. Any words of wisdom or encouragement as people start to consider leaning into that kind of journey?
Yeah, there is really no excuse, right? If you have a doctor's excuse, right, some physical reason that you can't do certain things, fine. I would be hard-pressed to accept that if the doctor were telling it to me. But beyond that, there's no excuse to doing something, to just getting started. And I hope that my story breaks down the barrier, right? Because I'm an ordinary guy, a nobody in terms of, hey, he had all of the advantages of being fit at 60. I didn't have any of those things. I just chose. I made a decision. And so many people in the tribe are people who have got some parts of their life really figured out, right? That professional fire might be just blazing, but the result is that you're stressed and you spend all day sitting at your desk or in your car and you're eating like crap. And so your body is not where it should be. And if you could ever get your body in a little better shape, your professional fire would be that much better.
Yep.
Not to mention your people fire and your purpose fire being impacted positively. So there's no excuse, number one, right? For me, it's as simple. I understand intimidation. I mentioned it with Spartan racing. I was so intimidated, and there's a part of me at every start line that is still intimidated. Can I do this? You never know until you start. I get really impressed with the military. Military guys. It's one of the cool things about doing the military fitness test. Is that military guys hone their bodies, many of them, to really impressive levels. A lot of what they do ends up being body weight.
Yeah.
If you figure out a couple body weight movements, what is your barrier to entry into a fitness journey? I think it's as simple as, depending on the man, you do as many push-ups as you can do, up to 10. And then you do as many sit-ups as you can do, up to 10. And then you do as many body squats as you can do, up to 10. And that's your first workout. And you just start building on that. The thing is, you've got to be consistent. And for me, that consistency is every day. If you're talking about 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups and 10 squats starting off, how much time is that?
Not very much.
Not very much. So don't complain to me. I don't have time to get in shape. Well, you do have time to start getting in shape. And as you progress, that's all it is. It's just progressing. It's just one more push-up. It's just one more sit-up. It's just one more set. To add an exercise. You know, you go for that walk, and you add just a little pace to that same distance walk, and then you make the walk a little longer, and you add a little more pace. And next thing you know, you're jogging, and then you're running, and your body has changed, all because you started and you quit making excuses that you didn't have the time or you didn't have the money or the gym was scary. Whatever your excuse is, it needs to go away.
Yeah. One of the characteristics that you have exhibited consistently over time is a choice to lean in. Whether that was on the college soccer field, it's like, oh, this is scary, but I'm going to lean in. Or whether that was in the your son coming home and saying, oh, hey, there's a Spartan race and I'm going to lean in. Or like there's a moment for all of us when we get to choose, am I going to lean into this? Like, or am I going to lean out? And so I think capturing those lean in moments, and then it's the consistent work over time. At 60, you did an Army combat fitness test, and you kept up with all of the guys who were not just 20 years younger than you, but in some cases 30 and almost 40 years younger than you. And to have gotten there is because you made some choices, some uncommon choices, over an extended period of time. And Lord willing, whether you're 20 now, or you're 40 now, or you're 50 now, Lord willing, we're going to be some version of 60. And then hopefully some version of 80. And who we get to be at that point has a lot to do with the choices that we make. And whether we lean in right now, like today, tomorrow, am I leaning in and doing something different than the choices that have gotten me to be right here in a place that I'm not particularly happy with? So, Rich, I am grateful both for this conversation, but more importantly for your example and your model for us and for me. I'm going to be watching what you do over the next 20 years, so that I can model what does 80 look like for me. I'm excited to get to go on that journey with you, and I'm excited for us getting to walk alongside a lot of guys as they try to figure this physical fire piece out. Because I think as we talk about, building an army of 4-dimensional men and women, that when we have a group of people who have really who just make this a part of their lifestyle, it changes so much of who we get to be on the day-to-day. It changes how we parent. It changes how we husband and wife, and it changes how we work. So I really appreciate you. I appreciate your leadership in this space, and I am committing that you and I are going to come up with something for the tribe that will be an accessible, but you'll have to lean in kind of program that'll be a jump start if that's what you're looking for. So, Rich, thanks for being here. As always, to the Four Fires tribe, lean in and live intentionally.